I am Ana Berta. I'm part of the GeneXus development team, and I'm not here to do a technical presentation. I'm here to share an experience with you, something that happened for the first time at the level of the development group. So let us watch this video very briefly, if it works. This is a machine that we use for carpentry. It's a saw, and it has a system. It uses sensors that can detect if the material that gets closer is similar to human flesh. So, if you see a sausage on the wood board, there's a safety device. If it feels that the sausage is near, as it's similar to a finger, it will stop automatically. It's interesting, isn't it? The person who designed this security system tried this with his own finger. You can find it in YouTube if you want to see the two videos. He tested with his own finger. He's an industrial engineer who used this type of instrument. He knows how risky it is. Well, this is where my presentation is heading to. You may be wondering, do we do the same thing in the software industry? Do we use the tools that we develop? Do we test them, as this man did? I'm not saying that Artech does not use GeneXus. Artech uses GeneXus, but what about us? Do we use GeneXus in the development team? Yes, we do. But very specific things. You develop something new and you try that feature in particular. If you need to check an error, you check to see if it has been remediated, but mainly for developing a system. Watch this, it's interesting. See how the sensor stops. So today in my presentation I will talk about this. Why do I share this experience with you now? GeneXus has been on and above for 20 years, but this is the first time we do this. The software is known as Dog Foodie. We'll tell you about the challenge for the development team, and then I will tell you what we learned in the process. I'm talking about a revolution now. You all feel the same during this event as well. We talk about smart devices, we talk about this revolution. In 2010, Gaston Milano presented the new generator with the smart devices. We feel this is a revolution, but this is not new. It did not start today. It's been here for quite some time, but we feel we are growing. I liked what Mr. Gonda said. There is technological blooming. And today we have a user, a consumer. Anyone can be a consumer. Any person. We find a 100-year-old grandfather using an iPad, kids using iPads. So technology and devices do not focus on a special kind of person. All of us can use one of these devices. Some brands are here for good. Now we have Windows 8. There are several applications. Nicolas Hodal yesterday talked about the different stores that now have 700,000 applications, and that number is growing, and people are getting more and more used to these devices. So very briefly, I would like to share a personal anecdote. 2 weeks ago in Uruguay, we had very strong winds and rains, and we are not used to that. Uruguay is a very mild climate country, and they were announcing winds at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. We are not used to that, and we are not prepared. Therefore, over 100 trees fell. Many streets were interrupted by the trees falling, and people were walking along the streets and started using a Twitter account that is used to denounce police events, if you like, or police controls for I'm not going into details how this is used, but that day the Twitter account was too much. People were using it everywhere. If they saw a tree falling, they took a picture, published it, announced where there were no lights in such a street. That street has been decided tour, and it was funny in the end because there were some comments like this street is flooded, and people integrated that to their daily life. So that was very much used. That's one example. And this revolution had an impact on all of us. It had an impact on the Artej development team. 2 years ago, we had this structure that you see here, but please, this is not quantitative. We are not 12 developers. We are a little bit more than that. But just to give you an idea of the platforms that we used and how we were distributed. The .NET, Java, environment, Prolog, specificator, those generators. Prolog is another language we use. This is what we had in the past, 2 years ago. With the smart devices, we had to learn from scratch. We started learning Android platforms, Xcode. Now we are doing Windows 8, and there was a restructure. Please don't feel that if AS400 is not here, it's because we have forgotten it. We still use it. I put the more significant ones for this smart device environment. So this was a revolution. We had to learn new things. We had to listen to new terms like Mac Mini, CK, Android. We had to evolve, and we had to learn many new things. And this was all reflected in GeneXus. In previous presentations, this was mentioned, so I'm not going to go into details. We found new objects, we adapted them to the smart devices platforms, we have a new generator, we have an API for objects. And yesterday, in one of the presentations, Nicolas Jodal was asking why use native apps and not web apps. And he talked about several reasons why native apps were better. The users get a faster feedback, they feel better. So if we want to use a smart devices generator, we have an API of objects that allows us to integrate with all the devices and to integrate with a calendar, or camera, or notifications. We also have a new pattern that Fabian Bonicia referred to, and the layouts. There are many layouts. Very quickly, these devices at least have a landscape screen, and I know that there was an explosion when we think about having a telephone and having a tablet. So these were too many changes, many changes. We started wondering, so who is trying these things that we developed? We didn't get much feedback from the customers. Some were using the smart devices generator, but there was not much of a trial or feedback. At the same time, this year, we had, apart from this GeneXus event, we had another commitment. We had a kickoff. It's something that we do every 4 years. The idea of the kickoff is that each of the developers has to present something that is interesting, or things you hear in the industry, or platforms, or what you would like to add to GeneXus, what things you would like to improve. We'll listen to specific problems from customers, what's going on at the time, and we do several other things. This takes 2 days. It's like a small event of ours. It has many presentations, and somebody thought, well, now that we are going to stop for a while and take time from our development activities, why don't we test all the new things that we have developed to validate the concepts that we are using? So that was our challenge for the development team. And we call it Challenge Development Edition. We were very enthusiastic because we were talking about community challenges. Our tech had already promoted different challenges and we had never participated, so we copied the name. This is our own challenge. So we fostered the idea that developed in 2 weeks for Evolution 2 and to implement an application. We had even a logo. It's not very pretty, but it's a logo. We did it in a rush and we are not designers. But the most important things that I need to highlight is that we had 2 weeks to develop the application. We had 1 week to think about the idea, 2 weeks to develop it, and then we had a date for the kickoff and we had to present it at that time. As any other challenge, and to motivate all the developers to participate, there was going to be an award. The way in which we could obtain votes for this challenge is very similar to the one of the current challenge for applications, and we had to publish the application in one of the stores or integrate it via Facebook or Twitter, and we would add up all the downloads plus all the supports or I like in other systems. So as I develop, the more platforms I use to develop my application, I would get more votes. And we had 2 weeks to develop this. Within the 2 weeks, the time of makeup, what we call the makeup of the application, what Fabian, we had to do it together. But the makeup was not possible. We had to do it later on. And we had to use an Evolution 2 version that was public, at least for the development group. We were in the process of implementing things for Evolution 2. Some features had not been completed. And the thing is that any problem we corrected had to become public for the other developers. So we didn't keep it to ourselves. Another way of motivating participation in this challenge was to make an application or give a presentation. I was in charge of doing so. Our experience. We are around 20 developers in GeneXus, over 30 in general. 16 developers participated with 18 ideas. Different features that appear today in Evolution 2 were used. Patterns, cloud, they are multi-platform. We published the first image. Top right, there's an envelope. This is for jokes. If you find a joke that is funny to you, you can publish it with the options that the telephone allows you. If you have Facebook, you can publish it in Facebook or send a text message or publish it in Twitter. We also have advertising and search. And we could see the gallery of cars. For example, in the case of advertising, in Android, during the challenge, we had it complete. And then integration with Facebook, and we have one application that, of all the ones that participated, was integrated to Facebook. It's just for Facebook. The final results, 3 applications were published. I put 12 SD, but they are 11 SD. One is exclusively web, and one is in all platforms. And here I have a list of applications that you can download and try and test and see what the GeneXus developers did. What was the motivation behind that? This was varied results. In the development team, we use Control.net open source instrument for the automatic assembling of this version. If a developer breaks that process, we get a red logo in the application. But we had some time to respond. It was quite reasonable from the moment we realize that something is wrong to the time we correct the error. Sometimes you just forget, you omit a file, and that causes a simple error. So we thought, as we all have intelligent and smart devices, maybe we could do an application that will help us have the information in the device, and we can help reduce that response time. And there was interest in all of them. One of our colleagues had received this request from his wife. She wanted an application to keep a clinical record of the family, visits to the doctor, recommendations by the physician. And he found that this challenge was an opportunity to investigate that. Several applications have to do with traveling. Some were mentioned already. Find My Plane is one that I recommend. I had an experience that was interesting. I'll tell you. My husband was traveling, and he was to arrive Sunday morning at 9. When I woke up at 6, there was a message. I'm in Miami. The flight was delayed. I've had problems with the messages, so I didn't know if it had arrived late or not, or what had happened. So I said, let me check. I go to the Carrasco airport, and it said that the flight was arriving at 9 a.m. So I went to the Miami airport website. Maybe there's a problem. Maybe they didn't have time to refresh the information. Miami airport says the flight was 40 minutes delayed. So it's 40 minutes, I calculated, and I said, he will arrive more or less in time. So I go to Find My Plane, and they tell me the flight is leaving Miami at 1 in the afternoon. I got in touch with my husband, and I said, yes, I am still in Miami. We went on board before it took off. We didn't take off. That's why there was a 40 minutes delay in between. But the plane never left Miami. I'm still in Miami. So my plane was the only one that gave me the right information about my husband's flight. Uruguayans are fanatics in terms of soccer. We are fans of different teams. So somebody used an application with reference to this is a paid application for Uruguayan soccer. These two, we are 3 million Uruguayans, so these were not going to be very, very popular, but passion for soccer is sometimes stronger than the award as a motivator. All the rest were simply attempts at reaching a larger audience or getting more votes. There are some games. One is about jokes. I mentioned it already. Or hobbies. I like cars. I have a car gallery and so on. This is multi-platform, so most of these applications can be found in Google Play or App Store. And Celebrity Hot Not is the only one that is in all platforms. Here we answer that question, what for? What for? We know how, we studied a lot, we have some experience with these new technologies, we've learned a lot, we use these technologies, we have been able to develop something that benefits the users, but of all the applications that were done in the challenge only, the 13 that we have published, we got over 45,000 votes. These are the 6 more popular, and how these applications were downloaded while they were public. Challenge was carried out in May this year, and we counted the votes up until September 30. And why? For whatever you, for whatever you need. The applications would help you improve an internal problem in the development program, development team, or games, or keeping record of your clinical history. Let's talk about what we have learned as developers in GeneXus when we used GeneXus. And let me start by the end. Let me talk about the applications that we developed. The first one is that the design of an application is very important. We still have some doubts. For example, Tell Fans, the one you see here, the first one in Facebook, obtained 22 likes only because the design was not very good. If you watch the screen, maybe you cannot interpret the objective of this application. It was just to know what soccer team in the world had more fans. Basically, that was it. We had only 22 people, and we are just 30, so we were the testers, and we were the ones who answered this questionnaire. And then we have the cross-control mobile. I'm not a designer, but I like it a lot. But basically, it has nice icons, but the screen is black. These are the defaults of the platform where it runs. Then, after the design stage, this was the result. It's much nicer and attractive. I did a survey. This that I'm sharing with you is a result of a survey. And those who answered told me that the features were easy to design, but half of the time was devoted to this process of communicating with the designer to really express what they wanted to get, and then to integrate the changes that the designer returned to them in the application. Another very important feature was that the users are very likely to make comments if there's something they don't like. It's easier to obtain a negative vote than a positive vote. So they were very, very interested in getting a very attractive application that worked well. The approval process is not always complex, but it was in this case. Celebrity Hot or Not was one of the things. In the app store, they spent 4 months for the approval of the application. It was a very interesting feedback process because we had to show images, there was a legal issue involved, and some details had not been solved as we had expected. Maybe the application is published, but it will come back because there's something out of order. We also learned a lot about GeneXus. As I said, we use GeneXus very basically to correct errors. It's in a complex system. But the majority of us used GeneXus at some point during the development of a system. but we were using other versions, like 7.5 or 9.0. And then when we joined the development group, we changed the daily language we used to communicate. So it was quick to use the patterns and the cloud. And these are some images for you to enjoy. And now they look nicer. From smart devices, well, we have to use the layouts. We have the portal and the landscape with the same application. And we also learned that we need to improve the tools that we have for design. Sometimes the communication with the designer tends to be complex, and then you have to add all the changes into GeneXus. And here I would like to invite you to Gaston Milano's presentation tomorrow morning. He will talk about what we are thinking of for the forthcoming versions, and we're going to improve the application. We feel that maybe this was one of the hardest things to achieve as a team when we developed. And we also learned about the process. It was the first dog fooding process that we implemented at the level of the development team. First of all, we all really felt at ease and confident with the tool that we were using. We all trusted the product. We found its weaknesses and strengths. We realized what we could do with it, what needs to be improved. So we were able to develop a system, small applications, that got to a final user. We had over 45,000 responses and feedback, and we're not used to that. We got it directly from the users. In general, when the clients find an error, this takes several steps. You go to the support people, and then you come to us as an issue. But here we got a direct report or direct comments on the applications that we had done. We all talked the same language. If, for example, you were part of the TILOS team, this is what we're doing at the Technological Laboratory of Uruguay, maybe you can hear our conversations when I get in touch with Gustavo Grampes, for example. I need token 30, I'll go back to that. Now check and see there's a correction. Have you got token 30? What are we talking about? It's just one point, one expression in one editor. This is the language we use every single day, which is not the language probably of GeneXus. But during the 2 weeks that we did this other exercise, we talked in a GeneXus language. Oh, they said, you're talking about how to activate a generator or how to activate a pattern, these basic terms that we were not using. So we become more aware of any claims that may come from the users. We became users for 2 weeks. And this also motivates our creativity. We left routine aside. We left some languages like .NET and Java aside, and we started focusing on design. So even though we were 16 developers working on one application, we were not the only ones involved. The whole development team was involved. Some were involved in the application or were fixing an error that somebody else found. And maybe the person that was not developing the application was testing it or was testing others, and we gave feedback. So it was quite entertaining as an interaction, as a team interaction. And the general feeling was, I love GeneXus. These are the screens of other applications that I'm not going to show. Finally, maybe you're wondering who won, who the winner was. This was a challenge. And third prize, Fly My Plane, Find My Plane. Second, Michael Gallery, Fernando Paniza, and first award, Cristianita Musso, jokes. He was a revelation. Nobody expected Christian's applications to be the winner. Well, just during one weekend, there were 500 downloads. We were checking how you were doing, and there were so many downloads at the stores. It was such a success, and this generated so much activity that we thought that the votes had to close on September 30, and the iPad, which was the prize, has been used by Christian already for several months. This is what I had to share with you. So please stay for Ignacio Roqueta's presentation. He will talk about what else we learned in this experience of preparing applications for smart devices. Have a good day.